Greetings. This is Paul the Poke from PaulthePoke.com. Today's topic, we are looking at This Week in Prophecy, just for the headlines. Bibi's back in Israel. We're going to have a little energy discussion. Russia and Jordan taking center stage. Well, they're not taking center stage, but it's emerging on the scene. We'll see that and we'll discuss that. Wuhan lockdown and Chinese lockdown over COVID and their zero policy. So, plenty of things to talk about. I'm going to start off with Benjamin Netanyahu will be the prime minister of Israel again. His coalition collected 64 of the 120 seats in Israel's parliament, the Knesset. So, I thought, let's look at what Al Jazeera has to say about this. And here's the headline: Netanyahu and far-right allies win Israeli election, set to form a government and seal a dramatic return to power as Lapid concedes defeat. There's the man, Benjamin Netanyahu, back in charge. He is Israel's longest-serving prime minister, and will have a chance to form a government with his ultra-nationalist allies. I just love the phrasing of this. We got to listen to these people, we've got a bunch of right-wing nuts getting ready to take power in Israel again. So they're not happy about it. And again, this is Al Jazeera and their perspective. So it is what it is. Netanyahu tipped to return as Israel prime minister after far-right surge. Far-right Ben-Gvir emerges as a key player in Israel elections. Has Lebanon recognized Israel by striking a maritime border deal? Well, that was signed last week. So, anyway, the nuts and bolts about what happened, I'm not going to go into those details. The main thing is Netanyahu has about 28 days to form what is expected to be the most right-wing Israeli government in history. I love the way they phrase these things. Again, this is from Al Jazeera. And despite the far-right nature of the party's leadership, far-right extremist right-wing kooks in Israel now in charge, led by Benjamin Netanyahu. That's what they just as well say. Needless to say, Bennett, a fellow right-winger. Okay, enough of that. Anyhow, Bibi's back in charge. He'll have a month. Should be no problem. And that should hopefully stop all the elections. I want to say they've had 5 elections in the last 4 years. Israel's just been in gridlock. So, anyhow, be interesting to watch what happens. I think some of these, quote, disputes that have been occurring in and around Lebanon and Syria, and with the rhetoric ratcheting up from Russia towards Israel, Bibi's not going to back down. He's going to defend Israel. I feel very confident about that. So keep an eye on it. Also, relative to Israel, the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak, has changed his mind. Previously, in August of 22, Sunak indicated he sees Jerusalem as, quote, Israel's historic capital. And he said this in front of a conservative Friends of Israel event. Sunak has also publicly stated, to me, it's indisputably the historic capital. It seems to me that there is a very strong case to it. To recognize what is a historic and practical step, it would be something where we'd be acting in concert with our allies in the region and, in general, one of our closest allies, that'd be the United States. So it's something that I'd like to do. But now that he's in power, quote, there are no current plans to change the location of our embassy. We got a couple of articles here from the Middle East Eye. There's a lot going on from the Middle East Eye. for whatever reason this week. And here's the article for those of you who want to click on it and get into the details. In a shock development, a Downing Street spokesperson told foreign journalists at a press briefing on Wednesday that the controversial plan to shift the embassy had been dropped. No current plans to change the location of the embassy. Okay. I did not realize this. This little orange spot right here you see on this map, that is land that has been purchased by the UK for a future embassy in Jerusalem. So they clearly thought about doing it. Middle East Eye also understands that UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly warned strongly against moving the embassy. Okay, he's not for it. Let's see, there was a change of heart. There he is, looking good, fancy suit. Apparently this guy likes really expensive suits. And then just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Today we send a clear message about our commitment to the Accords and all they represent. That's in reference to the Abraham Accords. The Accords have kickstarted a new era of relations in trade, tourism, security, more, and this is the dividend of diplomacy. This would have been impossible just a few years ago, but it does show how we can transform peace and stability in the region. The UK is committed to working with you all to take this initiative from strength to strength. Well, then let's move the capital. Let's do it. You want some blessing? Move it from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I think the good Lord would bless that. Just one man's opinion. Now they say we're hopeful that the government is going to move the embassy like America to Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. Well, they say. But just a lot of talk. Now, the reason why this did not happen, apparently some Muslim leaders in Jerusalem, they wrote a letter to King Charlie III condemning Israel embassy move. So, these Muslims didn't care for that, so they petitioned the new king, King Charlie III, deep concern about UK Prime Minister Liz Truss's decision to consider moving the British embassy. Well, crud, Sunak was going to do it too. It's not just Liz Truss. They both wanted to do it. The Jerusalem has been a great example of coexistence and peace. There's nothing peaceful about what takes place in Jerusalem on a daily basis. It's a joke between its religious communities for centuries. Like Jerusalem, some little kumbaya moment out there in the Middle East with all these religions. The international community, including the United Kingdom, recognized the special historic and legal arrangement, also known as the status quo, since 1852. That's resulted in so much peace. Now these Muslims again petitioned King Charlie. We oppose moving the British embassy to Jerusalem since we understand it as a message to the universe that the United Kingdom, in contrary to international law and the status quo, accepts the continuing Israeli illegal military occupation of the Palestinian territories, the Israeli unilateral annexation of East Jerusalem, and the Israeli illegal Judaization measures in the Holy City. Already unstable situation in Jerusalem, they say. Well, wait a minute. I thought it was peaceful. Which one is it? Help me out here. Now, in a response to the letter, a spokesperson for King Charlie told Middle East Eye this was, quote, a matter for the UK government. He doesn't want any part of it. But I will say this. This didn't happen just in 2020. This goes back. And this, at the time, Prince Charlie had made the comment and wished them freedom, justice, and equality. And that was in reference to the Palestinians. His admiration and knowledge of Islamic history and theology have also been well documented. Yes, they have. In fact, just me watching this from the outside, take it or leave it, I've seen King Charlie talk more about Islamic theology than I have him talk about any Christian or Judeo-Christian theology and values. Spends way more time publicly that I've heard. Now, I could be way wrong. But most of that's been about Islamic history. So I can't read the guy's heart, but I wonder what's going on in between his ears and what he really thinks and who he really favors. Just something to keep your eye on and monitor. But anyway, enough about King Charlie and the new Prime Minister Sunak and moving the capital to Jerusalem. Takes us to Ezekiel 38:13. Have you come to see spoil? And that's people asking questions of Magog, ancient Magog, or what I believe to be modern day Russia. Have you assembled your hosts to carry off plunder, to carry away silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods, to seize great spoil? So there's your biblical reference. And this happened right before the election, but I do think it's very relevant. Israel has begun drilling in the Karish gas field in the Mediterranean Sea. We'll take a quick look at that. And here is Haifa, Tel Aviv. The Karish gas field is out here off the coast of the land out in the Mediterranean. And there's always been a dispute as to where international boundaries, maritime borders have been drawn out in the Mediterranean. Well, the Karish gas field is Israel's. There's really never been any debate until they discovered oil and gas out there. And then Lebanon decided, you know what, we need a piece of that action. Then that's when they wanted to dispute it. And we've covered that in the past. And they've recently signed documents. Lebanon did get part of it. It wasn't any of the Karish gas field, but I think it's the Kana gas field, if I'm not mistaken, which is a little bit north of the Karish gas field out in the Mediterranean. But at any rate, as gas begins to flow, Lapid tours Karish, hailing implications for Israel's economy. And it is a big deal. And the money quote from this is right here. Producing gas from the Karish field will lower energy costs in Israel. Yep. Will turn Israel into a regional energy supplier. Yep, that's true. And will help Europe deal with the energy crisis. He made these statements speaking from a natural gas rig. High energy prices in Europe, and it's absolutely a direct result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine and, frankly, Europe's over-reliance on Russian gas. Putin controls that. Well, if Israel starts shipping gas, now right now, currently it goes, the gas from Israel goes to Egypt, where it's converted to liquefied natural gas, and then shipped across by freight to Europe. Well, the more gas that Israel sells eventually to Europe, the more that's going to cut into Putin's power play and pocket. And I think it's the hook why he's going to want to come. There's many reasons why he's going to want to come down into Israel, but to me, the ultimate hook is going to be natural resources, and we get that. It's stated very clearly. Have you come to see spoil? It's an economic reason. Have you assembled your host to carry off plunder? Carry away silver, gold, take away livestock goods, to seize great spoil. The great spoil's out there in the Mediterranean, and it's in natural gas and oil. No doubt about it. So check that out if you want to get into more details in regards to natural gas, the Mediterranean, and Europe being one of the primary buyers of Israeli natural gas. And this stuff's coming online. And as time goes by, more and more of it will come online. More will be available for Europe to purchase. Again, cutting into Russia's back pocket. Which takes us to, while we're on the topic of energy, let's go to the United States. An emerging diesel shortage, potential crisis evolving on the east coast of the United States. According to oilprice.com, 4 reasons why this is happening. And we're going to go to oilprice.com. And I think this started last night. Saw some stuff on Twitter, take it or leave it, whether or not you believe it. People taking pictures of signs on interstates and turnpikes in Pennsylvania regarding certain exits being out of diesel. So, 4 reasons why the U.S. is grappling with a diesel shortage. Distillate levels in the United States have plummeted to their lowest levels since 2008. Low inventories result in diesel prices soaring. And we got 4 main factors again. Distillate demand generally spikes in the spring when farmers are planting crops and in fall when they are harvesting crops. So this is normal. We're just coming off of a harvest or we're in the middle of a harvest. And people start buying fuel for winter. So this is when we see low inventories in April and in October. And again, they haven't been this low since 1982. We covered a couple of those factors. Also, this is the time of the year that refineries are doing maintenance. And I've seen some reports that some of the refineries that were not productive, not efficient, losing money, they were just cut out. They are no longer in business. Refining capacity has fallen in the past few years. Well, here's oil price talking about it as well. Unprofitable refineries have been closed. But the primary reason, I did not realize this, is the cutoff of Russian imports. Prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. was importing nearly 700,000 barrels per day of petroleum and petroleum products. So diesel, most of those imports were finished products, that'd be diesel, and refinery inputs that boosted distillate supplies in the United States. So we're getting a lot of diesel historically from Russia. Well, they're not selling it to us anymore. And we've put a ban on it, and there you have it. Loss of these Russian imports have caused problems for refineries as they struggle to fill holes in their product slates. Let's see. Some relief is on the way as some diesel imports are on the way from Europe to the East Coast. So I know we're probably playing a little trade game there. We send them liquefied natural gas. They send us diesel. This distillate market, that'd be diesel, won't likely return to normal before next summer at the earliest. So we're looking at least 6 to 9 months of a diesel crunch in the United States. And some of this stuff, we see fits and spurts of it here in the Midwest. Watch it bounce from 5 to say about $5.33 a gallon for diesel. But all the real heavy stuff, or the real heavy high prices, appear to be going to be on the East Coast and in the Northeast specifically. So keep an eye on that as this becomes an issue. Also, we're going to switch from there. Russia's playing a part again in grain exports in the Black Sea for humanitarian purposes, of course. Again, from Middle East Eye, lots of news from Middle East Eye this week. Moscow rejoins grain deal after Turkey's mediation. So what happened is apparently Russia agreed to ship some grain from Crimea across the Black Sea for folks in North Africa, Turkey, Middle East. But the problem was some of these, quote, commercial ships or private ships may have been carrying some ordnance on them and then took that out on the Black Sea Fleet. And I can never say that, but we'll go up here and look at it at Sevastopol on the Crimea. And so some of Russia's ships were taken out in this area. Now, Russia seems to think that these private ships that were supposed to be carrying grain, Ukraine snuck some missiles on there, on those private ships, and did some damage to their naval fleet. Now, Ukraine, for their part, denies. Well, they wouldn't do that, they say. Thankfully, Erdogan stepped in and brokered a good deal. And all of this, of course, for humanitarian purposes. I mean, thankfully, we got some wonderful leaders over there looking out for the people of the world. Russia's been frustrated by the fact that the UN and Western powers couldn't deliver the second part of the deal, namely to facilitate the export of Russian agricultural products and fertilizers through the Black Sea. Yep, the West needs to find a way to provide insurance for the ships carrying Russian products and a method to allow payment. Hey, why don't you put your naval vessels out there and escort them across the Black Sea? There's an idea. We seem to do that any place oil and gas is involved around the world. You know, the United States has no problem putting our naval vessels and resources to protect the free flow of energy. Just saying, Putin. Anyway, had a little peace agreement, reassurances. So Russia's back to shipping grain across the Black Sea. This is something that has been emerging, and for those of you who have followed the Watchmen, Checkmate and I get together on occasion and discuss some of the events of the day. Now, this is something he talked about from about a month ago. And specifically, we're going to look at Ezekiel 39, verse 11. On that day, I will give to Gog a place for burial in Israel, the valley of the travelers east of the sea. It will block the travelers, for their Gog and all his multitude will be buried. It will be called the Valley of Hamon-gog. Now, this is a Dead Sea. We'll get this up on a big map here, too. Several things pretty interesting about this. Here's the Dead Sea. Notice east of the Dead Sea is modern-day Jordan. Now, God calls this place Israel. Give Gog a place for burial in Israel, the valley of the travelers east of the sea. That today is modern-day Jordan. God says it's Israel. Just understand there that humanity is at odds with what this land's actually called. There, Gog and all his multitude will be buried. So that tells us that at some point when Russia and friends come from the north, they're going to come, from the Golan Heights up here in the north, and they're going to come down into what is modern-day Jordan. And arguably, a lot of them are going to be buried down here, which is just due east, about straight due east of Jerusalem. Again, God refers to this area as Israel, even though in the early 21st century, we refer to this as modern day Jordan. Excuse me. And it will be called the Valley of Hamon-gog. So at some point, in order for all this to happen, Russia and Jordan are going to need to be cozy. And are we seeing the beginning of this relationship between the Jordanians and the Russians that would allow Russia and friends to come against Israel from the north and eventually get into their land and access Israel, or attempt to access Israel from Jordan? Jordan's foreign minister, Amon Safadi, receives his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. And this was in Amman, Jordan. There's Lavrov. And there's Safadi over here Safadi on the right. The idea, and I guess this meeting took place, 3-4 days ago. November 3rd in Amman, Jordan, the capital. Here's a quote from Jordan Foreign Minister Safadi. The truth is, Russian presence in Syria has been a stabilizing factor in the south because the vacuum would be filled by militias and other groups that will not be able to ensure stability in those places. And the reason there is instability, Syria makes over $10 billion from an amphetamine-like drug that they manufacture in Syria and sell. It's like their only form of commerce at this time. And then also Jordan has taken in hundreds of thousands of refugees from Syria as a result of the Syrian civil war. So the idea that Syria gets some help from Russia in regards to border security is a big deal. And if you want to get into bigger details of that, you can check out this article from Middle East Eye. But the main point is that we know from Scripture at some point in the future, Russia and friends, not arguably, will be Turkey, Iran, Libya, Ethiopia, Sudan, and their hordes and other nations will come against Israel at some point in the future. So, and Scripture tells us they're going to come all the way down into modern day Jordan. And just keep an eye on that. Are we seeing this relationship beginning to strengthen? And from there, we're going to look at Revelation 9's 200 million man army. That'd be China, most likely. And they are experiencing another wave of COVID-19. The communists continue with their COVID zero policy. President Xi Jinping has taken power for a third term, which is unusual. And kind of like president for life, what some people are saying. Wuhan's back in the news with another round of lockdowns. Now, as of right now, and I've seen this number be as high as 300 million, but China has over 210 million people in lockdown in 28 cities. Food shortages and inflation are being reported in these cities. I chose the Sun article because they're the only ones willing to put some real numbers to this stuff. Everybody else is just, they're just locking up people, but they're not talking about how many people are actually being locked up and how big these cities are. Well, the Sun took the time to do that. Wuhan plunged back into lockdown almost 3 years after the first COVID case, 800,000 in quarantine amid spiking cases. And again, COVID zero policies. They're like, we're locking people up who've got it. Oh, excuse me, not president for life. Xi Jinping has been dubbed, quote, emperor for life. So 27 cities. So with Wuhan, that would make 28. Estimates 6.5 million have died so far from this. Infected, another 635 million. So, I mean, to put that in perspective, I saw today on, what was it, somewhere was saying that the planet has now crossed 8 billion people. So 635 million. I mean, what? 7% of the people have been affected around the globe, if you believe those numbers. It's really not that many, relatively speaking. So, and here's what's fascinating. China has recorded just 1,000 new cases from its population of 1.4 billion. Wuhan just had 240 over the last 2 weeks, but yet they're willing to lock down 800,000 in Wuhan. Willing to lock down 210 million of 1.4 billion over 1,000 cases. Really? Does that math make any sense? I'm not getting into this nonsense where they're trying to debate where it got started. I feel pretty comfortable with that. And by the way, for those of you new to PaulthePoke, we've been following this stuff since early 2020, late 2019. I'll never forget, I'm sitting there reading the news, and I'm reading that China locks down 40 million people over a virus. That caught my eye. I found that curious. And it started in Wuhan. And you want to take a look at what's going on in Wuhan. This is from James Melville. Great follow on Twitter. Check it out. Here's their zero COVID society. Look, everybody's got to have their little cell phone, and you got to have a green QR code in order to access public transport, go shopping, work, participate in the economy, participate in daily life. You need a cell phone and a green QR code. Now, if that thing flashes yellow or red, you better run fast and go somewhere. You probably just drop your phone because they'll track you. But they will catch you and isolate you, and they will take you to an all-expense vacation to one of these places. This blows you away. From Song Ping Onk. Chinese government spending billions of US dollars to continuously build quarantine camps all over the country. And we're going to cover these. First, Shandong province over there on the ocean or near the ocean. And I'm not going to sit here and watch this, 37 seconds of drone flyovers of this prison that they're building. But there's one. Second, Sichuan province. Again, just look at this. And these things they say it takes roughly 1 week to build these things. I mean, look at all these rooms they're going to stuff these people in. Zhejiang province. Here's another one. Just large scale building. I guess that's like a little porta potty inside of one of those things. I'd like to be stuffed in these boxes. Little air conditioner unit. This is crazy. Henan province. And they look like boxcars. Big boxcars. And anybody who, quote, tests positive, stuff them in these little boxes. China. Yunnan province. Got some watchtowers. Any of you folks ever been over to Germany and the concentration camps? This looks eerily familiar. Now, this is a nicer one. They have blue roofs here. Makes it look much, much cleaner. But again, you live in a little white box. I mean, look at the size of these things. It looks like a little shed where you could go store some tools for gardening. But yet that's where they're putting these people to house them, quarantine them for testing positive for COVID as they see it. Who knows whether or not those tests are credible and who they're actually putting up in a prison camp. Hebei province. CNN's even on this. This was from back in January 20. I'm sorry, that's more than 4,000 people. Come on. That's a gross underestimation. But look at all the cranes. How quickly they can pop these things up. What's like a small container, shipment container is what it looks like. Or a little storage shed. Oh, no, this is a good one. For all you young folks out there, all you little 30 and under somethings, this is your future, If you are a foreigner and you want to come to China, big chance you will end up here. And look at that. They even have English letters and some numbers, make you feel at home. A, B, C, D. And look at that. Electrical cars. This quarantine camp is dedicated to quarantine overseas arrivals. It is the most luxurious one and has self-driving minivans. They're electrical. So they're good for the environment. They transport goods, your food, to minimize human interaction. I mean, look at this little utopia. So this is what you guys want. You have green. Go outside and play a little basketball. That looks nice. Electrical cars. Have your meals delivered to your room there. Nice lights. I don't think those trees are alive. Look at them. None of them have hardly any leaves on them. Which I don't understand that. If you got these electrical cars, why do you need headlights on them? I mean, nobody's driving them. They're being remotely controlled, and that looks a little silly, but anyway. And again, here we go. In Wuhan, here's the camp in Wuhan. Again, all over China. Shanghai, I'm not going to tilt my head. I wouldn't expect you to. Beijing has them in the capital. Millions of Chinese being imprisoned in these thousands of quarantine camps across China. What about this one? Another one. I don't know where this one's at. Hunan province. Again, takes about a week to finish a COVID camp. Hunan province. I mean, just row upon row upon row of it's craziness. Oh, yes, this is one of my favorites. You have drones flying above these camps to spray chemicals to disinfect the quarantine camp. Instead of gassing people, we can spray chemicals on them from a drone. Keep you nice and safe and sanitary, of course. Here's again another one. Hebei province. Yunnan province. Henan province. This is pathetic, and I'm going to close with this one. Chinese toddlers being locked up in quarantine camps. I mean, he's probably, 3 or 4? I brought him some food. Little latch. I mean, look how big this place is. And look at that guy dropping off his food in like a little white jumpsuit. He's got a trash can in there. He's got a seat. Looks like a washer. A door on a washer. And that's that kid's life. Got a chair and a cot in there as well. And somebody phoning that, probably a parent. People's Republic of China. Anyhow, this just goes on and on and on and on and on. So, we'll close with that. Lots of things happening. And I know you'd think, oh, that can't happen in the United States. Well, I would hope it sure couldn't. And I'll close with remember to get out and vote this Tuesday, tomorrow, November 8th. And I know they say every election is the biggest one. Well, this is a big one tomorrow. If you like the way things are going, I guess you continue to vote for the party in power. If you want to change, you may want to mix it up or something. Full disclosure, by the way, I am a registered libertarian. Disgusted with both the Democrats and the Republicans. That's my protest. But if you like inflation, high gas prices, well, everything going up. Your dollar buying you more or less. I'm sorry, your dollar being capable of purchasing less. I'd say keep those people in power. But anyway, that's just me. You guys have a great evening. Later. Bye.